Nothing is easier than that. Even if you don't feel it, even your pet dog can pick you out before you get home, knowing that you are now on the way home. Because you start to concentrate on your home, and from then on he might start wiggling his tail and standing behind the door. Because you send out the impulse, cool, I'm going home. Soon I'll walk through the kitchen and so on. This is something like half an astral journey that you are doing. This is what I call the network of living things, the WLAN. So you can't not communicate with each other, even on this Wi-Fi level. You are constantly sending out energy, and if you don't pay close attention to yourself, you almost do the opposite. You send fear to your loved ones, because you might be worried about how they are doing. And on the other hand, I have also heard from completely non-mystics that a mother who liked her child knew from afar, without a telephone, that her adult daughter was currently having a huge problem and was doing poorly. And then a little later, the daughter called or the mother called. So this is really the language of the heart, the empathy, the sympathy in which everything living is connected to one another. Even a tree has wisdom and compassion. If you sit down with him and are open, you will notice that he is sending you strength, but perhaps also answers. It is not without reason that Buddha was enlightened under a tree. None of these are coincidences with a cave or a tree. And to us it seems so improbable, so absurd, so childishly stupid, because unfortunately we grow up in a world without empathy and compassion. You are treated like an object. The others also treat themselves quite callously. Yes, and then it seems unlikely to us that the dog has more compassion, and the tree as perhaps an educator, and only because of such insensitivity on the part of people. It's something like a brutal loneliness, when you feel yourself and feel the callousness of the people you love, that there is no answer. Only from this can such a perverse world emerge as materialism. So that is, so to speak, the empirical basis of materialism. There is no compassion, there is no sympathy, there is no love. Now it may become a little more abstract for you when you have largely cleared out your soul. You never have to be perfect, at least not on the spiritual path I teach you. Because you can feel for all the places that have been cleared out, the places where you are still burdened with pain, full of fear, or even in a kind of state of shock, cannot resonate. It really is like a pillar of salt solidified, like solidified into stone. You are, so to speak, blind and deaf. But the other things, when you focus on someone, a human being, you merge with them, even if he is perhaps sitting at the North Pole. The more permeable your own body becomes, it becomes like a screen, a 3D screen, so to speak. The better you can, the clearer it is, as if you were standing in your shoes. That is in English, i.e. in Germany, you are in his skin. And that feels just as pleasant or unpleasant as the unwanted fusion that sensitive people experience when they ride the subway next to someone. And then, or the scariest thing is taking the ice, and now the announcement comes that we are late and the following connecting trains can no longer be reached. Then a wave of horror really goes through the entire ice because people are suffering so much. So this is this natural sympathy and empathy of humanity. It is a wonderfully fine network. And on this background, language could no longer be misunderstood. You wouldn't have to talk so much anymore because most of it is communicated through direct empathy, which is what I call direct compassion. And you notice this empathy or this compassion, that is the basic form of love, compassion. If parents have no compassion for their child and don't know what's going on in their inner world, just performance or blame, why can't you or make an effort? This is all a language without compassion. They don't feel. This is cruelty. But that is the basis of culture. But being human is actually a wonderful thing. And if this compassion is missing, if you haven't got it, and haven't yet gotten it flowing again because of the rigidity and pain inside you, then life feels meaningless. Meaningless actually means disconnected. And if you, a religion or a church, only talk about a reconnection with God, and now only give you an image of God, the watchdog, the ethical driver, who holds the book of life in his hands, or the ruler, the same thing, then you will not be reconnected. They're not doing their job. Our connection and the language of the heart are so normal. And so you can maybe see why I find counter-value culture so brutal. This is the actual language before people use the so-called Babylonian Tower of Babel as the language confusion. I have a short video on YouTube, Babel and Pentecost. So Babel and Pentecost, the two words appear. Nobody Googles them, but that's where they get to the point. So the normal language for animal communication, or how you can actually have a conversation with a potted plant. What does she need, or what is she afraid of, or something? This is everyday life for me. And then I'm completely shocked at how callous managers and bureaucrats simply treat people like a shoebox or a Sharpie, because you don't need a super ego or a conscience. So that's always the case. They don't need commandments because God's commandments are written in their hearts. Something similar is always said for the so-called peaceful, reconciled end times in the Bible. If you want to understand it more normally, you don't need commandments because you are compassionate anyway. And then the big problem is setting boundaries, defending yourself or causing someone pain. Because if you scream at him now, his pain will immediately come to you like a billiard ball that rolls back. That's why it took me forever to get to the point. When you are so fully meditated and in oneness, how do I now deal with the callous people, or with people who threaten me or threaten me? Until I learned that I was simply playing a role in a completely pragmatic way. So I play demarcation, but my being remains compassion. But that's the next topic. How do you live your own being in the insensitive world? Remain compassionate, without the insensitive ones constantly beating you down like a 110-year-old grandma on a cane who wants to cross the street and is run over again. But in doing so, they kill their own being. And by denying universal compassion, or really dissing or ridiculing such people, the materialists are attacking the witness of their own nature, the witness of true human nature. And mysticism is about making the deserted human soul blossom again. And from my point of view, it is all the more blatant when the deserted people who bloom again are seen as weirdos or eccentrics. And when you exclude the flowering, growing, greening people from science, wait, what happens? It's killing. And how can you educate people or teach humanism? You really don't have to be a Christian or religious without that compassionate side. And that was the basic theme that my mother gave me. Such an intellectual and super successful department head and businesswoman for international negotiations in the GDR. But she didn't feel without compassion. Intellectuals without compassion are hell, because I was so full of pain and therefore meaninglessness, because I was no longer connected to anything. Then you're really just in a protective mode. And if you've survived, but you're in a protective mode, what happens? You feel life is meaningless because you are no longer connected. And now I read books and philosophies to find out, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life? You sit there and animals have compassion. And plants or even small children warmly approach you. You don't have to philosophize anymore. You are alive. Everything is in flux and in balance with each other, and a society whose philosophers or Sartre focus on the absurd, simply showing the degree of destruction. But what good is that? You would have to find the right path again. The fact that people cannot find the right path would be the work of the religious providers. But if they still tell you, as deserted souls, only you should do good, make the world better, how long will you be able to do this then?